This episode of Reasonably Spontaneous Conversation is brought to you in part by Boykin Life and Business Coaching, because we all get stuck at times. For more information, visit clayboykin.com. By Janelli Bean, for fun and engaging children's books with cute and colorful characters. For more information, visit janellibean.com. And by Wise Owl Organizing, simply set up for you. Organizing consulting and clarity coaching, virtual or in person. For more information, visit wiseowlorganizing.com.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Reasonably Spontaneous Conversation. This is a series, so stick around over the course of it. Ron, welcome, and welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, now, here's the thing. You and I have just met.
Yes.
So I need you to talk to me so that people can see two people getting a chance to get to know each other, two artists that are getting a chance to know each other.
Okay.
And one of the reasons why I asked how old you are, and you're like 42 now, right?
That's correct.
All right, you're 42. Well, so I rewound the tape on me. I'm 74 this year on when I was 42. I was 42 in 1990. I mean, it was great to be white and to be a man. Are you fucking kidding me? I am telling you, I was at the first of the line. People who were hiring were like me. I'm talking about even in the film industry where I am. I mean, it was, so this was my experience. So you're getting a chance to look at the absolute personification of white male privilege during that prime time of my creating career, like you are here, going ahead and doing that. And I just want to acknowledge that.
Definitely. I mean, I think that thank you definitely for acknowledging that. I think also, when you think about, if you did have the privilege, would you also say that you had the drive and the tenacity and the talent to go with it, and also
absolutely. Hey, it takes a lot of work to get from third base to home.
Well,
I'm not minimizing my work ethic.
Absolutely.
But I am just telling you the opportunities that I had. My choices were so much broader.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying about white male privileges, because I want to be able to believe, Ron, is that we can hold two thoughts. Like, for example, we can come to a racial reconciliation in the United States that heals a lot of our wounds. At the same time, we can acknowledge that there are more opportunities for African American and Black and people of color than have ever been in the history. Being able to go from zero to relevance, to be able to do this, has more in your hands. But both of those things can be true, rather than to say one or the other. So, what do you think?
I do think that there is more opportunities now than there was ever before. And
Right.
I think we're seeing that because I think the numbers are showing that the audiences have changed, or with people feel like they had a monopoly on exactly what works. You're seeing different. You're seeing all kind of different shows. I mean, you just never know what's going to be. But now you're seeing audience that also they're voting with their streaming numbers. On what they want to watch, and so
exactly.
And that's the thing, is that a lot of times if the audience doesn't get what they want, the person that does serve them, they will go to that, and you'll flock to you'll flee to that. So you definitely are seeing a lot more opportunities.
Well, in having those opportunities. So how are you? All right. So now we've gotten the fact that this. All right. Now tell me how would you like me to refer to your racial background? As Black, as African American, as a person of color? What is your preferred, so that I can feel comfortable when I'm talking about generically? I'm talking about our racial work together.
Well, any of those three is fine. I mean,
Do you
because
have a preference? So there's no. All right. So that's what I want.
I don't particularly have a preference because I'm a black man. I'm an African American man, and I'm
Yes.
a man of color. So all of those boxes checked. Like
Well,
neither, not calling me one or the other doesn't offend me. Is kind of what I'm saying. So.
that's what I wanted to know. I mean, because this is some of the questions that white people are concerned with. How do we have this conversation? How do we have the important conversations that we need to have? How do I meet Ron at that head and heart level so that you and I mean, let me tell you, over the course of my life, I mean, back when I don't know if you know of him, but Bubba Smith and Toady Smith and all, he went on and did television after he was this amazing football player at the University.
Police Academy.
Yeah,
play
right.
Hightower. Okay,
exactly. But anyway, I had him on the show, and I have been treated over my life by African American families and people better than any other race. In my experience, I'm just letting you know I'm talking about graciousness. I'm talking about kindness, feeding me, bringing me in, being open-hearted. I mean, I have had an extraordinary experience with all of the African American people that I have had just way in the numbers, and I don't know what that is about. I don't know what it is that I have been, because as I watch your films and I see the darkness that you have to go through, that is going through the films, and so when we're talking about Malcolm Percy Seal and the character that you did in that, or you're talking about the film with your brother, where you play with your brother.
Yes.
Give me the name.
Unbrotherly Love.
Brotherly Love. Yeah. I mean, you are really talking about some really deep and profound issues.
Well, I want to go back to what you were saying. First, I want to address that.
Please.
First of all, one of the first main things is that I know a lot of times when you're dealing with two people of different races, it can be uncomfortable understanding how do I address you. And I think the most important thing is to address me as a person, as a man.
Thank you.
Regardless if I'm black, if I'm Hispanic, if I'm Asian, I'm a man. For example, when I go into a pitch meeting with a network, I'm not going in there saying I'm a black man with a black show. I'm going in there as a man with a show. Now, and it may or may not have a lot of the black experience involved in it.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that happened to me in 1999 and 2000 was when I was in college, they used to have these DVDs you can rent.
Sure.
And so I would take 2 home every weekend. And then I was exposed to all these different movies that I particularly didn't see in my demographic.
Yeah.
And the
like what? For example,
well, going to the movie A Beautiful Mind by Ron Howard, starring Russell Crowe, was a film that definitely was something that was totally different than I was exposed to when I went there, and I was watching, seeing the artistry and seeing the acting and the talent. It just took me out of just what I was accustomed to and gave me desire to look for other things. So and also I don't look at particular things as a black film or anything. I look at it as a film, particularly about maybe a culture or experience or a subject matter. For example, Unbrotherly Love is not particularly about black brothers. It's about if you have a younger brother who adores his older brother was a tyrant to him coming up, and you haven't dealt with those unresolved feelings, what do you do? And it just so happens you have an opportunity to talk to him to get that closure when you lost your daughter. Now, in life, this pain and things that we deal with, they don't come in the most convenient time. What do you do? How do you have that conversation? And it is those kind of things about how we treat each other. And I know a lot of my projects are universal things. When we pray on them, it's specific, but everything else has pretty much been universal, so that you couldn't put a color on it. It's a situation, type of thing. So
that's the way I felt about Brotherly Love, because I could feel the situation, even though it was framed into watching your character work through his anger enough to be able to sit there with, because he has a lot of unresolved, but to be able to sit there while he deals with that and talks it out, and being able to have that conversation.
Yeah, well, because the thing is, I know a lot of times in writing they talk about how people don't say what they really feel.
Yeah.
They hide, or they talk it, or they resolve it, or they they suppress it. Well, I really like seeing characters have their say. Because I think it is healthy. A lot of times I remember my ex-wife and I was talking to her about my brother, and I was talking about all these things, and I had a Samuel Jackson in the backseat moment, Pulp Fiction. Wait a minute, why am I telling you this? I need to have the conversation with him. I was sitting there, I was like, hold on, why am I talking to you about this? He's the one, and it just came to me, and the thing about it is a lot of times, and here's the thing, a lot of times when we've hurt people, it's hard. Nobody wants the humble pie. Nobody wants to, because you don't want to think about it, you want to deal with it. But but for me, what I've learned is that there's another side on that door of closure, of peace. To sit here and say, Dennis, I wronged you. And to be able to sit there and take whatever you give me, to take however you make me feel right there, to sit here and say, I apologize, I haven't done it since, and you can still bring it up, but I've dealt with it.
Yes.
There's something empowering about that.
Oh,
and that's what I'm hoping that people will see.
This is the neat thing about it, because I want to be able to say that if we as human beings are going to process this, because it really feels like that in our media culture that we pushed people apart. There's a lot in social media. It's very easy to go apart. To me, it's like that goddamn Ukraine. So easy to drop bombs. Drop bombs is easy. Build something. Now that's hard. Do something worthwhile. Build something instead of just dropping a goddamn bomb on a place. And that's what I feel about human relations, is that if we can sit down and have a conversation, we're going to get through a lot of the issues, just like the two brothers are doing. But that, to me, is the hard emotional work, that human soul to soul work that I was so impressed with in seeing you in that film.
Well, I definitely thank you so much. I really appreciate that. But it's another thing. What I realized a lot of times through my journeys in life is that a lot of times to hold on to something and then to tell someone, they might be serious and they may use it as an excuse, saying, well, why didn't you tell me? If I tell you, no matter what you do, you can't say 30 years you didn't know. So, and then we're going to see where that's at. And these things can be difficult to deal with. But one of the things that my mother did growing up, one of the things that she would do is that she would continuously talk to us. My mother worked in Department of Corrections for over 30 years.
Yeah.
And one of her goals, other than for us to do well, was to ensure we didn't end up locked up.
Oh man, what must that be like? Tell me her name, her first name, her name.
Her first name is Vernell.
Would she feel comfortable with me calling her by her first name? I don't know. What would you prefer? What would she prefer when I'm first meeting her?
She prefers Miss Watts. She prefers
Miss Watts. All right, let me talk about Miss Watts. I am stunned that she would have to go from that correctional facility and come home and see her children. How did Miss Watts do that?
One of the things that she was able to do was she was fantastic at being able to leave the job at the door, which isn't easy. I don't know particular recipe. When you talk about, for example, we just lost Bill Russell.
Yes.
And Bill Russell was the evidence of having a strong mind and being able to deal with, because what he had to deal with in the time that he came up and the time that he played is unprecedented. No one would have to deal with that. But his mental fortitude, which you saw the way that he was able to conduct himself and to be able, and the way that he played basketball, he dealt with it on a mental level
and coached basketball too. So it's not just playing. Not only did that, but he's also with anyway.
Well, absolutely. 11 rings. The last ring, he was the player coach. And when you think about John Havlicek, I believe he has 7 rings. Bob Cousy has 6 rings. So Bill Russell has 11 rings, which means that he did it without some of the all-stars and some of the Hall of Famers that he played with, which isn't easy. So yeah.
No, I mean there is no, and one of the things that I love about because I think about this in the way this, because I want to do this piece on white privilege and competition, and where I think some of the anxiety is coming in the culture is that I look at the 1948 Detroit Pistons that won the championship. Year of my birth, all white men. And I wanted to put that, how would that team face up against the 22 Lakers or the 22 Suns or the 22? I'm just because there's a competition. It isn't that we can't up our game, because you see men are up in their game, but there is more competition
Mm-hmm.
at the table than there was. Instead of us getting by on just being able to go, we got to work harder. And I think that's where some of the resentment that we're seeing out there in the culture.
Mm-hmm. I
What do
think
you
there.
think?
Well, I think
Anything?
I think resentment comes in all kinds of ways. You know, it could be black and white. It could be lazy versus hardworking. It
Yeah.
could be fear of taking. See, here's the thing. I have seen more specifically in working in corporate America for the years that I have.
Yeah.
I've seen more favoritism than I have seen racism. The
Yeah.
racism is probably was there, but it wasn't as overt as the favoritism, or as someone who's sitting here saying, you know what, I don't really care what color you are. If I allow you to shine, you're going to make me look bad.
Exactly.
Because you're bringing 95% every day. I'm bringing 48. And
Exactly.
I'm getting by on the 48. And I can't allow you to expose me. So there is that. I mean, they're all different type of reasons. Like I said, you do have your white privilege, you have that, but at the same time, when I think about somebody like, J.J. Abrams, I don't think about white privilege. I think about the fact that he said himself when he was at Sarah Lawrence College, he was working on all these screenplays instead of going to the party. Whether they were bad screenplays or not, he was working on that.
Yeah.
Even to the point, and I think you kind of see that, just like when you look at someone like a Denzel Washington, when I read somewhere that he was saying, listen, he got to a point in his career, said, give me every project that Harrison Ford turned down to go for another trajectory. But when you look on the screen of what he does, it's magic. I do think it takes luck. I do think it's opportunity. And
I absolutely, and
mm-hmm.
no question is that there is an element of luck in it.
Yeah.
And one of the things that impressed me, I apologize for cutting you off, and if I did, please bring it back again. Remember, that was our agreement. You have a point, you have something, you say, come back. We're not dealing with that yet.
Okay.
But there is your degree of professionalism and your degree of project management and the hard work that you put into it shows on every frame that you do, whether you're acting whether you're acting or whether or not you're down here. I mean, I'm watching an artist grow as you go.
First and foremost, thank you so much for that, because I do work very hard at it. But at the same time, one of the things I tell young filmmakers or actors is, who do you admire? For example, the discovery of Ridley Scott, who is a gentleman. He's English. He is one of the greatest directors, I feel like, of our time.
Amazing.
Aliens, Black Hawk Down, Thelma and Louise, G.I.
and
Jane,
television. He also went into television.
Don't talk. Hey, The Good Wife. Don't talk. Hey, don't start, because. But I mean, one of the things. I mean, because he directed 2,700 commercials before he did his first feature film, which was, The Duelist.
Yes.
This is going back, because RSA is the company he started, they do commercials.
Yep.
I think that he listened to his interviews over and over and over and over again. When he would say things like, as a director, it's his job to oversee every single thing. That told me it was my responsibility. It's about the script. It's not about, I got a cool idea, let me see if I can make something out of it. You can have a cool idea, but where's the story? Is there a story? What are you trying to say? And that you have to be your biggest critic.
Absolutely.
You have to know if it worked or not. But then also when he talks about, using multiple cameras when you can. I know for me, when I can, for him to use multiple cameras, because if we spend all day shooting you, and I gave my best performance 6 hours ago, then the film is going to suffer. But
Absolutely.
if you do something amazing, if you do something where you can't, it's like telling a joke twice. If you do something, we got it.
Exactly. And it is the magic, and it does happen once. You can never. I mean, I hear this whenever I study. I mean, so as an actor, cutting your teeth as a theater actor.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about that experience and what that impelling was about?
For me, it goes back to doing skits in church, doing little parts and plays in church. It also, I have to tell this story. When I was in elementary school, I got chosen to sing "A Shepherd Has a Very Hard Life," and I was terrified. I didn't want to do it. No, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I want to do it. I want to do it. Finally, my teacher was like, oh my God. I'm gonna give this other guy to do it. So he got to do it. As soon as she gave it to him, I started learning. I was like, hold on, I'm not doing it anymore. And I learned the song. And then I was ready to perform the song. But I gave the opportunity away, and that taught me to not ever do that again. Another thing is for me is that watching the movies, watching the Goonies coming up, watching Back to the Future, watching Teen Wolf, all these films where I'm seeing there's all these, these experiences and these adventures that I'm just relating to. It was just something about that. I was like, and then also for me, being someone who has been basically dealing with, being overweight for a majority,
Yep.
being the teasing, I'm also someone who young ladies from elementary school up until my sophomore year in high school was called ugly.
Yep.
So for me, acting was a chance for me to be someone else.
Exactly.
Someone else that people will to pay attention to, or just to be up in front of people. At first it was the attention, and then it was just this feeling of, man, this is just like on television. I didn't know exactly what it was, but I know that I really, really enjoyed it, and I was working hard to be good at it.
Can you talk with me about, because this is very important for me right now, but as I'm doing it, again, knowing where I'm coming from, I am really working on self-acceptance. Self-acceptance is one of the big aspects of my life at my age, at my economic level, at what I want to do, where I want. It all comes back to that self-acceptance, because when I'm accepting myself, I tend to be able to bring more creativity into that. And my sense is that you've done a lot of work on self-acceptance and working on that. So could you help me a little here? Could you give me some perspective?
I think that we have to make a decision and ask ourselves, do we really like ourselves?
Yeah.
What do we not like about ourselves? And to identify that, and then, can I change it or can I accept it? If you can change it, and it's something that would make you feel better or make you walk a lot taller, then definitely do it. One of the biggest people other than my mother that helped me really understand who I am, and that's okay, a man named David E. Gordon. He produced my first 2 plays with me, and the man has been instrumental, because here is a man, God-fearing man, who's a cheerful servant of God, just terrific husband, terrific father, and someone who was very nice, very kind, very giving. And people, unfortunately, would take advantage of him, which I didn't like.
Right.
I'm a huge David E. Gordon fan, and I thank him for everything he's ever done for me. But what I realized, I said, David, I can't stand it. I was like, if you don't want to curse him out, I will. And he would say, no, Ron, no, I'm doing this unto God. This is what I'm doing. What he showed me by seeing, by watching what he did, not what he said, was that, I'm secure with who I am. This is who I am. I like myself, and I'm not going to change. And what I realized, because at the time I was around a lot of people that for when you think of I cast you in a play, I'm the writer, director, producer, and I come in I got my lines together before anybody else. You would think that you would come in ready. Yeah. And I had all of these people around me that I felt that didn't give me didn't respect me, or that wasn't really serious about the craft. And I realized I was around the wrong people. And I realized that I had to get around other people that not only appreciated, but also wanted to go have the same work ethic, and the same quality of it. See, I believe in, working with people who are talented, non-ego, who come together to do a great project. Because you do that, and then you all can you can pretty much branch off. Who doesn't want to be a part of a great project? For example, when you think about something like, for me, A Runaway Jury, brilliant cast. When you think about Sleepers, tremendous cast. And for those who may not have got the reference, Barry Levinson, Robert De Niro, Kevin Bacon, Brad Pitt, Jason Patrick, just to give you a reference. Runaway Jury, Dustin Hoffman, Gene Hackman, John Cusack, Rachel Weisz, just to name a few, just to give a reference. So
I love this because it I love that you keep coming back to work ethic, because when I watch, I recently watched Ethan Hawke's piece on Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward, The Last Movie Stars. It's a 6-part series. Okay. I'm telling you, it knocked my ass up, because it was the first time it was done on Zoom during all of that.
Okay, that's right. It was an interview with them.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay,
it was done on Zoom with all of their friends. George Clooney played Paul Newman for the tape. When they had to read transcripts parts, and and Laura Linney, I believe, played Joanne when they were doing transcripts. But it's the damnedest thing I've ever seen. As a director, I would love for you to see it, and just see HBO Max, and it is so worth seeing the style. because it freed me up to be able to believe that here on virtual we can still. It's all about the content.
Yes.
What's the richest conversation that I can have with Ron Dillard? What can I do? How deep can I go that you are willing to meet me there, or I'm willing to find you there, and we have a deep conversation that's meaningful, that says something that we're not just leaving on. We're not just showing up and going, well, I want you to see my latest website that I have up, and I mean, let's talk meaningfully. Let me help me get to know you and what I need to know, because your work ethic is holy Christmas. That's the core of it for me, and being able to get back up and do the reps and do the next time. And anyway, it's take it somewhere, Ron.
Well, the thing for me is that, being the fact that I'm a writer, I write and create projects that fascinate me.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. When I first decided to start my company, which was called Ron Winston Entertainment, now Ronald Dillard Jr Entertainment, because Winston's my middle name, and it was a little confusing.
Right.
So we straightened that out. I looked around, being in Richmond, Virginia, I looked around and said, okay, what kind of plays are being told? Now, in Richmond, Virginia, there were a lot of plays dealing with the 1800s. So I felt that was very well represented. Okay. I wanted to talk about stories about today, about why we as people treat people the way that we do. Now, my brother has had a lasting impact on me, because he's the basis of two of my projects. One of them is A Player's Last Place. My second produced play that I produced is because my brother, I would see him, women would flock to him. I'm talking about, I mean, they would.
He had it. He had the whatever it was,
whatever
it was.
Absolutely. He had it, and they wanted it. So it was twofold. It was twofold. And the thing is that I believe that had he not married, his wife that he's still with, and had he not changed his ways, he would have ended up like the Sean character in A Player's Last Play. Because, and what I learned, what I observed about him was a lot of women who were very nice and very kind, he wasn't as kind to. A lot of women that were boisterous and just like you can take it or leave it, he would serve them gourmet.
Yeah.
And just looking at that and just trying to examine that, because I remember one of the best compliments I got is that my ex-wife had a friend who asked me to lunch because she wanted to talk about the play. And she said, Ron, how did you capture a woman's perspective so well?
Yeah.
And I said, the best answer I had was, I know pain. And unfortunately, I know what it's like to love someone that doesn't want you.
Yes.
Or doesn't like or love you to the extent that you will. When someone is in it with you for other reasons, they'll only go so far. Like if they're in it to get more benefit, or to extract from you, or to use you, or to play you, they'll only go but so far for you. I'll do this for you, but I'm not going to do all that when they're not all in.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the feeling that I hope that people probably know about. But and for me, I know I've seen a lot of pain in my life. There are a couple of options. I can let it transfer me into someone who now afflicts the pain. I can let it trap me and keep me hostage for the rest of my life, or I can use it to hopefully help other people. And that's one of the things I look to do through my art. And I write what fascinates me. I mean, absolutely fascinates me. The idea of whether what people say about it, or for example, I Deserve Better. It's about domestic violence, not a new topic. And for me, I don't want to do something like that without bringing something new.
Yeah.
And in this, and I talked to over 40 women and did some research on it. 70% of the men who abuse women, they saw it growing up. In the character, you heard the reason why the young lady stays. Whether you agree with it, you think it's silly, you hear it. You also heard the abuser, why he does it. And I only put that in there because I feel like that's a key to hopefully solving or helping someone. But then there's another dynamic that I've never seen before. The father who taught his son to use women like Kleenexes to dominate their mind is a reformed man, because he lost the love of his life. His wife, she didn't die. This is a story, true story that happened. My grandmother left my grandfather. He pulled out a revolver and said, I'm going to blow your brains out.
Yeah.
She looked him in his eyes and she said, go ahead. Because one way or the other, I'm leaving tonight. He lost his nerve. She walked out. And in this story, she now finds a man who appreciates her. And then the father in this tale, he may have he goes to counseling, which for a lot of baby boomers, a lot of men who grew up in that time, they don't do that. But he does. He gets reformed. But now he can never find another woman. He now realizes she was the love of his life. He goes back to her. She laughs in his face. And now he knows he will never, ever truly have happiness because he's lost her. He tries to discipline his grown son who says, "How dare you? Because you taught me to be like this." I did that in that because I've never seen that dynamic before, and just hoping that it helps someone. And one of the biggest compliments of that play was the elderly couple was watching the DVD, and the husband looked over to the wife and said, "Was I like that?" She said, "Honey, you was just like that or worse." The man used to abuse her. He now got himself together, reformed, and he couldn't recognize himself in the character.
All right, let's talk about reform, because
Yes.
I'm very interested in the concept of redemption. That was part 1 of my reasonably spontaneous conversation with Ron Dillard Jr. Join us for part 2.
This episode of Reasonably Spontaneous Conversations has been brought to you in part by In Search of the New Compassionate Male. For more information, go to newcompassionatemale.com.